Sometimes I wish we could go back to a time when things weren't so complicated.
Welcome to the complexity of toilet paper, the podcast that dives into the everyday moments where we overthink, hesitate, or just get stuck.
I'm overthinking. I'm overthinking.
Let's hear it for the toilet paper!
Through honest conversations, unexpected insights, and a whole lot of humor, your hosts Phyllis Martin, Mark Pollock, and Al Emmerich are here to help you roll with it and make your life a little less complicated. One conversation at a time.
That's right, dude. The beauty of this is its simplicity.
Speaking of which, it's time to enter the stall. Put the lid down, or not, depending. Get comfortable, and roll with it.
Oh, worry not, dear friend. It's really quite simple.
This is the complexity of toilet paper. We are about to embark on a journey. You, me, we, us, them, all of us together, one entity, enrapted, or should I say enraptured, in a swirl of toilet paper-like frivolity.
What the hell was that?
Toilet paper frivolity.
I don't even know what most of those words meant. I'm going to have to get a thesaurus.
I just accessed Stephen King, Isaac Asimov. I might have gone biblical somewhere. I don't know.
Wow.
I find a bunch of words and they somehow, like Scrabble gamed, get thrown together like craps in my head. Yeah. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good Nacht. Good evening. How are you?
Fantastical. How are you?
I'm skippy because today's show is like a redo, renew, refresh, something kind of cool. But we'll tell you about that in just a minute. But it's sort of like going back to school because we're going to break the cardinal rule.
Keep going. I know there's more in there that
you know, in fact, our listeners are going to love this show so much they're going to drool.
Yep.
Right?
Gosh,
yeah.
Mm.
And then afterwards, we're all going to go take a long, wet dip in the pool.
Okay. Have you seen on the Instagram?
I'm a fool.
Still staying with my story. Have you seen on the Instagram?
On the Instagram.
Man,
you realize you can't say the Instagram.
I'm going to. It's too late. It's happened. It's happened. It's part of toilet paper frivolity.
There's the sun, the moon, but it's just Instagram, just Facebook.
Have you seen on the Instagram, Grandma, the man who sets up like his music machine in the park?
Yes.
Says contemplate or something, whatever, come do this. And there was just one over the weekend where like the song actually, they put it out on YouTube. It was so good. Like the one guy came up and kind of did your kind of thing that you just did. But then the next man that came up sang and then other people came up and added to it. It was great. I can't think of the name of it.
So it was on the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube, all of them?
I only saw it just on the Instagram, but it is now on the YouTube.
Got it.
Wow. If you're new to the show,
what would you do without me?
I don't know. Nothing. We have to cancel. We'd be done if you weren't here.
That's what
the
I
show
too.
would be over.
Welcome to the technologically advanced Uber world of Phyllis Martin. Hey, gang. We are here to unpack the show called The Complexity of Toilet Paper. We are past the double digits. We're like in the teens right now of our shows, which means we've done enough of these to figure out in the early days what kind of didn't work, right? So if you're just joining us maybe for the first time or you're new to the show, Mark, Phyllis, and I are all enamored with the idea that life is really too complicated. And most of the reason it's complicated is us. We make it more complicated than it needs to be. So we set out on a journey. It was a journey, a dark night. It was a journey to simplify our lives and to investigate this thing called complexity. And then we dumped into the worlds of complication. And then we discussed, well, what's the difference between complicated and complexity?
Yeah,
And
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Is it really simplicity? Well, is simplicity the goal? Anyway, as we complexify, thank you, Mark, for creating that word. We also started the show and just said, hey, let's just do it. Let's just record. And we recorded a show, and one of our very first guests, the very first person we recorded was Ron Ben-Zeev. Ron, who I'll tell you about in a minute. What was your first take of Ron, Mark?
I mean, you're going to make me access that long ago? I mean, he was, from what I remember from that interview, I mean, just a fascinating gentleman who had traveled all over the world and done amazing things. Like, his story is fantastic. So when you said he was willing to come back and talk to us with our our format that we've been working on, I was super excited to talk to him again. So yeah, that was my impression. Is he's incredible. I'm very excited about the show.
Phil, what about you? What was your takeaway from the first time we interviewed Ron Ben-Zeev?
I remember thinking like how multidimensional he was, and through his story, how can I start over again? Yes to multidimensional. I think the thing that stands out was how he aligned his humility, and that helped drive him towards success. There was something there about the impact of what others might have folded under, and really, I think where there was some humility, right, on his part about what he was experiencing, and his tenacity and growth because of those events. And like Mark, I just found him to be like tenacious, interesting, kind, pragmatic, kind of like, here it is, this is what it is, and very interesting. So I hope our listeners will agree that his story is quite fascinating, and there's a lot to be learned from him.
I just also wanted to say that there's a lot of $5 words being thrown out today and multi-syllable words. And so I appreciate if maybe we could go a little slower so I could like look those
Dumb it
up
down
as we go.
Yeah.
Because I'm just, I'm
Mark,
struggling.
I'm just sitting here shocked that Phyllis, for all she has going on, remembered all that detail, and all you could come up with is he was fascinating. I mean, that kind of sucks.
I'm trying to, I'm trying to live by our own philosophy and keep it simple.
You did. Simple like
success.
vanilla. Simple like vanilla ice cream with no sprinkles, no chocolate syrup.
Just
At least vanilla bean.
Well, the funny part about what you both said is, yes, he is all of those things. Fascinating. Yes, just a beautiful human being. Ron is also one of my dearest friends, confidants, and a beautiful human being. But for you listening, what we learned, and you're going, well, why didn't you air that show? Well, the show was kind of all over the place. And it was actually a learning tool for us to realize that while we're unpacking complexity, if we don't have a direction and a North Star, the show itself can become a little too complex. And so the gentleman you're going to meet today is here to talk about the complexity of the pivot as a startup, as a founder. And we're going to unpack that word pivot, let him explain it to you. But a pivot is what we literally are doing and did with the show, ironically, as a result of Ron. The show was a little heavy, convoluted. What didn't have the focus we thought we needed. So we were like, hey, let's come back and talk to Ron about something specific while still touching on his incredible life. He's lived or worked in West Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Central America, Europe. He's fluent in 4 languages. And Ron actually began his entrepreneurial journey back at the age of 13. And that matriculated, big word for you, Mark, that matriculated into a stealth career or a healthy career that was, how about this? A graduate from Wharton School of Business. That's pretty impressive. But when I met him, he was very heavily involved in the Orlando startup world. And I'll let him tell you more about that when he comes in online and jumps into the stall with us. But he's served on a number of different boards, was an entrepreneur in residence at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. And he's currently the founder and president of World Housing Solutions, a Florida company that They manufacture rapidly deployable and reusable thermally efficient structures and shelters for the military NGOs and first responder industries. And he also really recently had a pretty cool experience. He was on a television program, an interview program with NASDAQ. So we'll ask him about that. But the theme is the complexity of the pivot. And when we had Quinetha Frazier here, and I would invite you to go back and listen to that episode. Quinetha brought her perspective to the world of entrepreneurship, but Ron has his. And I think this concept of the pivot and having to make changes, so much of it is a direct reflection of our ability or lack thereof, or the lack of tools and resources to be able to simplify the complex. And so that's why we have him back in the stall. And I'm excited. Are you guys excited? Are you guys excited?
We're so excited.
We might be more excited.
Okay, excited. That's my Harry Carey. Yeah. Well, welcome. This is Harry Carey. Well, okay. 7 beers in.
It's going to be a good one.
Oh, yeah. You never know what voice is coming out of these lips. All right. Hey, this is the complexity of toilet paper, and it is time to swoosh into the stall.
I'm overthinking. I'm overthinking.
Ladies, gentlemen, world travelers, aliens from other districts of the planetary spherosphere, we have now landed on planet Earth with a gentleman who can only be described as otherworldly himself. He has lived on multiple continents. He is continent, though. We want to be very clear about that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ron Ben-Zeev, and welcome into the stall, my brother.
It's awesome to be here again. It's a little sticky, but we'll make it work.
Yes, we just explained to the wonderful fandom of complexity the origins of Ron and the story. So you were the first, and before we even get into resetting your background, do you even have any thoughts or ideas or feelings about having been the first and then brought back? I mean, because I know that first time you were like so nervous about, I don't want to screw this up. And you're like, no, you were great. We just changed things around.
Pivoting, right? It's all about the pivot. And no, this is exciting to be reinvited. Rare. It doesn't happen often. And to be part of this this group again, so that we could hopefully dive into some complexities together, and who knows, solve some problems.
Well, that would be the goal. I asked Phyllis and Mark to kind of flash back to what stood out and what did you remember, and Mark's word. What was your word, Mark? Fantastic. But Phyllis shattered all of that to pieces by illustrating not only the wonderment of your experience, but also the kindness of your humanity. And I just said that you're a really cool guy. So there you go. That's the reset.
I think I get the gold medal on this one.
I was about to say I like Phyllis the most.
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
It's quite all right.
Hey,
Yeah, we're used to it.
We Mark and I keep hoping for hate mail because we just get bland mail. It's like, oh, you guys are okay, but Phyllis,
Yeah. Oh, Phyllis's laugh. And
Keep it up,
Phyllis's
guys.
insight, and Phyllis is this, and it's just enough already. Enough already.
Ron Ben-Zeev, you truly are an amazing and fantastical individual. In addition to me lauding you for our friendship after all these years and a brotherhood, you are truly, and I know this sounds cliche, one of the world's most interesting men, people. Period. So I've kind of given a background, and I don't want to reiterate that verbatim. Give the world your introduction, if you will. What's the elevator pitch for Ron Ben-Zeev as we sit here in 2025, bringing 2025 to an end soon?
The 50,000-foot view, as they say, is born in Israel, grew up in West Africa, ended up in Europe on the border between France and Switzerland, and around the age of 11, stayed there until I came to the U.S. for college. Learned to never say never, because back then it was like, oh, I'll never live in the U.S. and I'll never marry an American. I'm going back to Europe. And, almost 40 years, 39 years of marriage next year. Living in the U.S., 3 kids, and, just enjoying life.
You have been many things in your life. You've traveled, as you said, but in your bio you reference having the entrepreneurial roots actually started when you were 13. What was that introduction? What were those first touches with entrepreneurship?
It's where supply meets demand, right? The very basic of, someone has a problem and you can come up with a solution and you have a business. And back in those days, we lived in France, and Labor Day in France is celebrated by selling or gifting lily of the valley flowers. And not far from where we lived, in a small, it sounds very idyllic, but it was a small town on the border with Geneva, and there were woods not too far from where we lived, and kids being kids, ride the bike and go do things. Or back in the day, right, no cell phones, and parents go, just be back for dinner, and they didn't know where you were for an extended period of time. And so one time during one of those things, I discovered in that little forest an area where lily of the valley grew wild. And the house my parents had bought had hundreds of clay pots that were in the basement. And I went, hey, can I use those clay pots? And my parents went, sure, what are you doing? So I went and picked as many of those lily of the valleys that I could fit back and forth on my bicycle, brought them home, potted them, and then during Labor Day, which was the week after shortly thereafter, I started selling lily of the valley. And, as they say, this is where my life started unraveling, but, or where the adventure began on the entrepreneurship side.
Fast forward, and we're going to fill in the gaps as we talk about the pivot. And I know Mark and Phyllis and I have a lot of questions to ask you about that. But you just recently had an opportunity to be on NASDAQ on a television program. And within that show, you were featured along with some other top thought leaders and trends news. But the topic was how legislative priorities, regulatory frameworks, and strategies are driving U.S. competitiveness. I'm pulling directly from the show. Yeah, I know. It was like, it sounded. I mean, wow. Yeah, should we do it monster truck style? I mean, how legislative priorities. Anyway, so Ron, seriously though, World Housing Solutions, because that's a reference to that's your company. You've had to pivot many times. We're going to unpack that, but give us the lowdown. What is World Housing Solutions, and tell us what that feature was that you were talking about on the NASDAQ show.
So going back to the roots. Right, where you have to pivot, right, in life and in business and in many instances. So in my particular case, I was in real estate when the market crashed in the early 2000s, which seems so far away and yet wasn't, and lost virtually everything when the market turned out, because I was in real estate. I was a developer. So if you remember, that went the way of the dodo bird very quickly. So there I was, sitting on multiple pieces of property being developed, still being sold to developers, all single family. And I thought it was the smartest man in the room and very cautious. And, I'm like, I'm going to build this in a way so that when the music stopped, if the music stopped, there's going to be a chair under my butt, and no chairs to be found, not even a toilet seat. So, at one point it was literally how do we make ends meet, and how do you find, how do you make money, right? And at that time, everybody was looking for a job, or so it seemed, and nobody wanted an close to over the hill entrepreneur. It's like interesting conversations. And then someone came to me and said, "Hey, we know this company. They're making these forms of panels. Would you do consulting work for them?" I'm like, yes, they've got money. I'll take it. And it was literally that. But the company was failing miserably, and was on its deathbed. And you could see little blips on the machine, but like, "Hey guys, you've got nothing here. I don't feel okay taking your money, and I'll be able to provide you value." Now they're like, no, it's alive. We can make it happen. And I'm like, no, you can't. There's nothing. But around the table were some interesting individuals, and at that time, shortly before the earthquake in Haiti, that kind of sets the stage on the timeline. We're discussing on how can we salvage the brain trust, and then the earthquake in Haiti happened, and what we saw from afar was the devastation that it created and the hardship that it created for people to find reasonable shelter in dire environments. And so we said, okay, how could we create a better solution for refugees? And we launched into doing what I tell everyone else not to do, is go ahead and build it. And if you build it, they will come. No, first validate, make sure people care about your solution, not just come up with a solution and try to find a problem to fit it. We invented a solution to a problem. And if you talk to the people being displaced by those natural disasters or man-made disasters, they want a better solution. They don't want a 3,000-year-old technology, a stick and a cloth, right? Attempt. They want something that is protective, that is insulated, that where they can feel safe. The problem is they can't afford it. So those that pay for those solutions are interested in the least expensive proposition that they can deliver quickly, and then let things happen. And in that world, I quickly faced a doomsday scenario, right? We created a new company, we built a new product, we designed, engineered, manufactured it, and then try to sell it. And all we got again, time and again, was, "Hey, interesting, but intent is good enough." And we literally faced the demise. And at that point, we got an email, and it was from the U.S. Navy, from the construction battalion of the U.S. Navy, which is similar to the Army Corps of Engineers. So each branch has a group that deals with construction and sites and camps and things of that nature. And the question was, "Hey, I'm so-and-so with the USCB, with the CBs, with the Navy. I saw your website online. What you do is interesting. Can you make it bigger?" Right? I'm an entrepreneur. The answer is usually yes, followed by, "Wait, what's the question again?" We finally got to a phone call from emails, and in the phone call, the gentleman is telling me, "By the way, you're not the only form of alternative construction company that we're talking to." And in my head, I'm like, "Duh, you're the U.S. Navy. I bet you're talking to everyone." And then the gentleman says to me, he goes, "But you're the only company that responded to my email." And that's how we started doing work with the U.S. military, because they came to us and challenged us to design, engineer, and manufacture a shelter that they could use and deploy primarily in the Hearts and Minds program of the U.S. military. World Housing was born on a pivot.
That's why you're here.
And that led to where we are today, which is, how do we take the knowledge that we've built within the modular world and incorporate that to solve a very thorny problem that we have in the U.S., which is the lack of affordable housing. And I'm not talking for, people that are houseless or homeless or right? I'm talking about my kids, right? Graduated from college, making a very decent living, but it's a struggle. Everybody's renting. And so we're now hitting a reset and saying, okay, can we take the lessons that we've learned, incorporate that with modern technology, AI, automation, and all those things, and then package that together. And that was the crux of my input within that interview that you mentioned at the beginning with NASDAQ.
Cool.
So Ron, I have like a million questions. I'll try to get one question out and we'll see where we go. I'm doing the best I can. So we were on some show that we did, and I can't remember which one. Maybe it was about risk, but I feel like inherently in the pivot, right? There's some level of risk that entrepreneurs, even businesses, even nonprofits, have to have some foresight to know when to take it, when to start thinking about the pivot, when to make the pivot. Can you talk a little bit about how, as an entrepreneur, you knew when it was time to do that? What goes into that decision-making process? And maybe at some point, this is my perception, by the way, why so many businesses or organizations are reluctant to do it.
I'll give you the best visual that I can. When you're drowning, you're not bitching about the color of the life vest, right? In our particular case, we were shut down. Everybody said, interesting concept, attempt is good enough, right? So we were a solution looking for a problem. When the military came to us, we pivoted in order to be able to address an existing need. It was an easy decision. It's either shut down the company or see how we can work with the U.S. military. Do we have what it takes to be able to deliver the solution that they need? That was very easy. When it came to my previous flop, which was the real estate side, I can say I was blindsided. No, I thought it was immune from the risk because of the way I'd built the business, except that the entire world collapsed around me. I wasn't the only one collapsing. It was everyone collapsing. So there wasn't much I could do at that time. But when it came to, hey, do we want to continue to try to solve this, or do we want to go to where there's a paying customer who says, if you do this, we're interested and we can buy more? Yes. It was an easy decision. If you're
Ron,
yes, go ahead.
But let me ask you this though, because your pivot was based on a blessing, right? It was a phone call from the blue that said, "Hey, you have something that might solve our problem." But when you reference even the real estate piece, where I'm getting at is, if you are an entrepreneur or you're in even a job you don't like and you're looking to pivot, how do you know when to hold on, and how do you know your pivot was easy? Someone called and said, "Hey, can you modify?" But how will somebody know, yes, I should hold on to this, or I should be looking for a pivot? I should be looking for a change. Is there a lesson from the real estate that you applied in the world housing, and you just knew, hey, when this phone call came up, I need to pivot because in the past I didn't pivot?
Maybe not. If it was that way, it was not conscious to specify that. And I'll tell you that I think following your gut and right, we've got analytics, got numbers, we've got all these things. But listening to your gut is really ultimately the ability to discern and make a decision that's best for the family, right? And it's not just if it's just you, it's one thing. If it's you and a family unit, and your spouse or significant other and children, or not, right, affects all of those decisions. In my case, I'm fortunate that I have a true life partner that, she supports me, and without her, world housing wouldn't exist, right? She's like, okay, do this. I'm going to go back to work and do what as well when we need in order to be able to combine forces for the sake of our family. So without Erica, there would be no world housing. But the pivots that you have to look at, life or not, is, does it fulfill you? right? Are you still interested in what you're doing? Does it make you happy? Or are you just doing this because you're stuck in a grind? I had a conversation not long ago with a family member who's like, "Hey, Ron, how are you? How old are you? I know you're younger than I am, but what time is at what age is retirement in the U.S.?" I'm like, I think officially 65, but because he's retired, and he's like, "So do you think about retirement?" I'm like, "No, I'm still having fun at what I'm doing. I'm still enjoying this." And I also have in the back of my head the words of one of my professors in business school who was on entrepreneurship. So, I mean, think about back in the 80s. Yeah, I'm that old. Back in the 80s, being taking an entrepreneurship class was not the thing to do, especially in a school known for finance. So I'm an odd duck in that world. But that professor was both an investor, so he both taught and also did it, right? But one of the things that he said to us, which stuck with me, obviously, right, all these years later, he said, "My father recently retired." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "And I hired him. I gave him 2 weeks vacation. I said, 'Now you're coming to work for me.'" And
Yeah.
and he said, "Your brain," he's like, "just change the word brain for a racing engine. And now imagine the car that just raced and won an Indy 500, and you take it out of the car, you put it on the shelf, and a year later you go and try to start it. It won't start because your brain's the same way. You stop using it, it will just decay and go away." He goes, "Same with your brain. So don't let it happen to you." And for me, as long as I'm interested, as long as things are still interesting to me, retirement is an R word, right? It's a weird word. It's not something that I'm, and I've said that to Erica a long time ago. I'm like, yes, I'll slow it down. Yes, we'll go and we do that now. But I'm about to launch in a completely brand new enterprise dealing with modular housing for the United States. I mean, talk about, at 64 launching something completely new that's going to be a time suck for a while, but it's
in your DNA, and that's those are the stories that you hear about, and one of the stories that made you so endearing, Ron, in Orlando and in Jacksonville. When in Jacksonville, Florida, when I met Ron, he was instrumental in something called One Spark here when I developed a training academy for entrepreneurs, and Ron was setting the groundwork by not only sharing his tutelage and advice, having worked at Rollins College, 1 million cups, and been a part of that system, but also his own experience. And so, Ron, I have to ask you, you have seen entrepreneurship personally, you experience it, you're about to delve into another venture. You have taught it at Rollins College. You have been a part of it, and you and I talk exhaustively about what they don't teach entrepreneurs, the mental drain, the emotional drain. So I'd like to ask you some specific questions. First of all, why, in your opinion, well, first of all, I'm going to go back. Define pivot. Now at this point in your career, we've talked about this, and I love that we didn't ask it up front, actually, but now you just talked about you're going to be launching a new venture. You've had to pivot numerous times with World Housing Solutions. We've got an economy that's kind of like either roaring or boring. What does pivot mean to Ron Benzeev?
Survival, right? It really, well, when all I did was manufacture our particular products, I resembled the famous adage that says, if you walk with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I was walking with a hammer. When people would call me and say, "Hey, I know you make those composite cool things, but hey, we're interested in this kind of solution." No. You want the composite stuff, right? We're making it right here. This is what you want. Yeah, no. We don't do that. The moment I started outsourcing our manufacturing, it relieved me and released me from the burden of all I have to offer is this one solution. So that was it was not an easy pivot, but it was a pivot to allow us to both reduce our stress and overhead internally, changed some of the parameters because now we're relying on others to provide what we do, but actually created better solutions for us. But it also gave us the ability to say, oh, you don't want a Chevy, you want a Ford. I'll get you a Ford.
Ron, I want to pause real quick. You said that pivot, you define it as survival, but what I'm getting from your definition here, your story here, is that a pivot is two things. One, it's a mental thing, and it's an action. So it's both mental and physical. And the mental piece is being open to ideas, suggestions, and opportunities. And then the action is actually executing on that opportunity. Is that fair?
It's being able to see that your baby may not be the prettiest one, right? Is accepting the fact that you may not have all the answers. And the landscape is littered with brilliant minds that have invented amazing things and failed to implement them. Digital camera, anyone? Right? Invented by Kodak and decided, hey, no one's going to want this, and put it on the shelf. And someone else saw the opportunity and took advantage of it. So sometimes you're so entrenched in what you do that you can't see beyond the outside walls of what you do. Go ahead.
Well, and go ahead, Phil.
I think I was just going to say it's when I think of pivot too. When I think of pivot, I also think of having the foresight or willingness to see the opportunity that might be standing right or staring you down. It might be right in front of you, but you have to have, I think, a willingness to do what you're suggesting, which is say, maybe, my baby isn't the prettiest baby anymore, and we need to look in a different direction, even though it means risk, change. I am, like, in the best possible way, so taken by the word that you use, survival, but it is, like, in its most basic definition, to be able to pivot is survival.
But I also wonder, as we're defining pivot, it makes me think about the book Who Moved My Cheese, right? I don't know if it has to be always, and Ron, I'd love your opinion on this, always at the point of do or die. Sometimes you can read the tea leaves and say, hey, in 6 months, a year from now, 2 years from now, this is the next iteration. It doesn't actually have to even be a major pivot, but it could be a little bit of a change in direction. In your experience, help us understand that piece of it as well.
It's the military statement, right? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But yet when you're planning, it is a living, breathing document, right? You have to be able to have flexibility in what you're looking ahead for, towards, and in order to be able to say, okay, am I on the right path? Reevaluate time and again. Is this the right decision? Is this the right direction? Even as we're contemplating now, looking and moving into the world of modular housing, we're not the first. Lord knows, right? It's been done. It's been done by others well and not so well. Lots of conversations are going over that. Heck, you could buy a modular house from Sears off their catalog back in the 30s and 40s, and a house in pieces would show up in front of your lot, and you could assemble it, right? So nothing new under the sun. It's just, do we have the right approach, the right team, the right solution, and does anyone care about it, right? And that's ultimately going back to what you said, Phyllis, is it's a decision that is scary, but and it's something that you have to look at as you're planning. Hopefully, we're going to do X and Y and Z by 2000, in 26 and 27. That's the goal, and then being able to execute on that and pivot if you needed to because something went awry. I mean, if going back to the boom and crash of real estate, right? Some people saw the tea leaves. I didn't. I thought I was well covered and well protected in that arena, and God was like, hold my beer.
Ron, before we step into the roll up for some deep thinking, like we're not doing deep thinking here, I want to, all of this, I'm looking at it from what I learned, not only from my own experiences, of course, as an entrepreneur, but what I learned so deeply from you, and then just the experiences from working with over 300 creators during One Spark. And I think, Mark, this speaks to your question as well. While Ron was addressing what pivot meant for him as it relates to the survival of his business, I know, Ron, you and I have talked, pivot is part of being a startup. Like, it's funny in the investor world, as equity investment into startups. There are markets that are mature investor markets, meaning strong equity markets, your Chicago's, your New York's, and your Silicon Valleys, and then there's newer markets. I won't name any because I don't want to piss off. But there's markets, and oftentimes they're markets where you've got really business owners that have extra capital and they want to invest in something, versus truly a serious, experienced investor in the startup world. And every investor I've ever talked to in the startup world that's a veteran of it, the word pivot is part of the vernacular 24/7 because they're expecting it, and they're trying to assess from the company that they're investing in, the people they're investing in, their ability to actually manage the pivot. And so, Ron, back to my other question before, colleges teach entrepreneurship, business schools teach business, but there's something missing because there's still these bright-eyed, bushy-tailed dreamers. God bless them, you should be, but the pivot is left out of the equation. Thoughts?
It's not always left out, right? It's taught and discussed because you have business cases on this company was doing this, and then they went out of business because they missed all these things, right? So it may not be deliberately stated as the pivot, although now it is part of the vernacular. And going back to your statement, investors invest in teams often more so than they do in the technology, because they, as you stated, they know you're going to hit a wall or you're going to hit walls, multiple problems. And are you flexible enough to pivot? Are you flexible enough to say, okay, this is not working out. We need to find another path to solve this problem. And in order to do this, we need to stop thinking this way. We need to start thinking this way. So those are all integral part of the future success. And it can mean that what you started off with doing, heading in one particular direction, you're forced to go the other way. And that's when you're accepting failure, right? You're accepting that you failed in your original attempt, and now you have to pivot in order to survive, right? It all wraps together in a very neat role, pun intended, in order to be able to to get us to be successful. Now, as you go through that, the more outside pressure you have, the harder those decisions become, because you have investors that are hoping to get money back on their investment, right? So you want to please them. So if I pivot, what happens if I just shut it down because there's nothing else I can do? I've tried everything within my power, right? Or you bring in other people within that ecosystem Are you surrounded with the right people that will challenge you and will force you to look at it differently along the way? Those are all the things that people struggle and have a hard time with when they launch any kind of companies, because right, people always say, well, hire slow, fire fast. Right, there's still a human factor to this, and do you have the right people around you that will help you make it a success?
Well, and we hear over and over again, Mark, Ron, that fear sits at the center of the table always when we talk to folks about change and complexity. We overthink because we want to get it right. We overthink because we don't want to be wrong. We make things more complex than they have to be, oftentimes as a result of that. And it's fear is that driver. And there's no greater fear for an entrepreneur than I'm going to run out of money. My idea is not going to be accepted. And the old adage, fear is not an option. But yet you're saying, well, fear is just part of, fear is not an option. Failure is not an option, rather. Failure is part of the startup. And pivot is part of failure, right?
100%. The question is, can you pivot early enough that you still have cash, you still have runway, right? You still have people around you that believe in your vision, and your investors are still on board, or do you need other people to invest? It's curiosity meets opportunity meets market demand, and all of that, right, boils down to one thing: execution.
Another reason Ron Benziv is still my number one choice to play Trivial Pursuit. I don't even know if that's still a game.
Makes sense.
So, speaking of pivots, Ron, we are going to make our own pivot right now, and we're going to step into, I don't even remember if this was around when you did the very first show with us. I don't think it was, but it's something we like to call the roll up. And I know you're a fan of the show, so I'm sure you've been trying to think in deep thoughts, like anticipatory planning, strategically. What are Phyllis and Mark and Al going to throw at me in the stall? And so you have no idea, and we have no idea because we don't plan. So I'm going to start off because I've been juicy ready for this. I don't even know what juicy ready is.
Why would you ever say that on this show? Take it back.
And
put it back
talking
in.
about a bathroom.
In the
We're
stall.
talking about a bathroom.
In the
Right.
Yes. Why?
Ideal
Where
in
did that come
volume,
from?
ideal in quantity, not quality. It's like my jokes. It's like I just throw it out there and shit flows out. All right, here we go. Ron Benziv. I know, I did that one on purpose. Ron Benziv, you have, and I'm going to make sure, I'm going to go back to my notes to make sure I don't miss it. You have lived or worked in West Africa, Asia, Middle East, Central America, Europe, fluent in 4 languages. I know that you've traveled all over the place. What is the one country, if it's the United States, then other than the United States, but what is the one country where if you had to go to the bathroom, this is the country you'd want to go into the bathroom? And is there a place that stands out as like the best bathroom ever?
No, but I can tell you where I wouldn't want to go.
Nah, you gotta, that's an easy one. All right. Where's your best public bathroom or bathroom experience in all your world travels?
Probably Switzerland, right? They're notorious for being clean and efficient. And that's, if you got to go, that's the place to go.
It's a long trip, but hey, there you have it from Ron Benziv. If you can hold it that long, it's so worth it.
And you can yodel and no one will yell at you.
That's right. In fact, it's a
going.
requirement.
That's it.
You finish, you flush, and you yodel. FFY. So, all right. Who's up next? Mark, Phil?
I'll go. You are a thinker, a doer. You've come up with businesses. We've talked about pivoting. What was the last deep thought you had in the stall?
It actually happened not long ago, as in today, and it was. I hope I will not disappoint Phyllis.
Oh. There's a chance.
Wow.
There's
You
always
won't.
a chance.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know what I'm moved by more. Pardon the pun. I don't know if I'm moved by the fact that you have such caring thoughts to worry that Phyllis would approve of you, or that you were thinking of Phyllis in the toilet. I don't.
Well, we got to hear what this is. All right. So what's
What
your
is
deep
it?
thought?
Will I disappoint you guys? Right? And
Oh, that's the deep
That's
thought.
the deep thought.
Oh.
That could never happen.
Oh, no.
No, that could, no, there's no way that could have ever happened.
No.
Ever.
You can just wipe that thought away.
You can wipe it away.
No
And
dingleberries
flush
here.
it.
So, flush it. I feel like my question is like in the pocket of Mark's question. Have you decided to make a pivot while you've been in the stall?
It's actually, I discovered something that allowed us to actually patent one of the things that we're doing at World Housing. We pivoted, and I discovered it while I was in the bathroom reading an article, and started to dive deeper into the information. And then when I came out and I called the team and I said, hey, I think we could use this to do what we're trying to solve. And they kind of looked at me like, what? And then we did more analysis, more information, more and more and more. And then it turned out that I was right. Doesn't happen all the time, but in this case, I was right. And we were able to incorporate someone else's engineering and idea into what we were doing, and then actually get a patent for it. So that was kind of cool.
See, I knew something had gone on in the stall that would lend itself to a pivot or something big. Thank you.
I've got one last one, and then I'm going to leave it over to Mark to lead into our closing section. What do you think our listeners, our podcasting complexifiers, would most need to know when it comes to bathrooms of the future?
Go to Japan, because they are way ahead of us in so many ways when it comes to complexity of toilets, not toilet paper, but it's absolutely insane how the technology is evolving, to the point that AI is now going to be embedded, so it can do an analysis of your finished product and potentially discover health issues before you even know about it.
What?
I mean, I was thinking, how could you make bathrooms more complex? And you just did it. So, wow, that's incredible. Well, I just think that just tells me we're going to have to do a show in Japan. So we'll need a sponsor ASAP on that.
We got to go to Sweden or Switzerland. We got to go to Switzerland for the best experience, and we got to go to Japan.
And in Japan, it's a medical write-off. I mean,
and by the way,
tell me if I'm healthy or not.
Japan may actually have the combination of, right, because they have such amazingly modern and high tech, toilets. They may also have the best, public bathrooms as well.
And if you're listening to the show and you happen to have traveled to Switzerland or Japan, please message us on Facebook or do a post. Let us know.
Yeah.
Comment on the show and tag Ron.
Post a
We're going to
picture.
give all of his socials at the end. Marky Mark?
Ron, as we come to closing the stall door and flushing this episode, I reflect back on our moments here and talking about pivoting, talking about understanding entrepreneurship, what is and what is not taught in school, what you learn through just experience, through reading the tea leaves, through failing and winning. And what we like to do here on the complexity of toilet paper is leave our audience with something that is useful for their life and something that they might actually be able to apply. Now, not all of our listeners are entrepreneurs. They, work in regular corporations and jobs, and some own businesses. But we all have a need to pivot in life, and so our hope for our audience is to look to you to say, do you have a handful of tips that either you've taught in class or you've just learned through life that someone's not going to just be able to look up online, something that they could apply today into their real life around the pivot?
Well, let me share with you some of the most powerful words that I know of in everything that you do in life is go up to someone you trust and say, I need your help. It doesn't matter what the help is for, but if you're open to receive, to ask the help, right? If you're wise enough to understand that you can't do everything by yourself and you're surrounded by people that can provide the assistance, that are smarter than you, that have more experience than you, or that you trust, asking for help is the most powerful way to help you through life, because you just can't do it alone.
Ron, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Let's give me a practical example of that too, as it relates. So many entrepreneurs are afraid to ask for help for the reasons that you've illustrated already. As I referenced one of our former guests on the show, she talked about people will wait until the last minute and everything's about to blow up, when if they had asked for help earlier, they could have saved the day, and so on and so forth. So what does that look like for an entrepreneur that's either seasoned or that's just starting out? Tips on how to ask for help.
It's be prepared to be vulnerable, and have the ability to realize, again, you're not a superhero. You can't do it all by yourself, right? I was fortunate enough that in one of the crux of what was going on at World Housing, and I had a major issue, I happened to make a phone call to my friend Al, and Al said, "What are you doing Friday? We're having lunch Friday. You, me. I'll meet you halfway. Let's go." And it was transformational. It was, two grown men crying in a restaurant and sharing stories and being vulnerable and being open and honest and walking away feeling so much lighter. And I can't emphasize that enough. And if you don't have that in your life, if you don't have the right people that you can lean on, go find them. You have the wrong people around you.
That is a mic drop. And that is why we bring amazing people into the stall. And that is why we call this the complexity of toilet paper. Wow. Ron Benziv, thank you, my friend. There's just no better way to close this show. Ron, if people want to get a hold of you, LinkedIn the best way?
LinkedIn, absolutely the best way. Yep.
Okay, great. So it's Ron Benziv on LinkedIn. We're going to also put his handle into the show notes. Tell us about, same thing, your website, so that people can find you.
So the website is World Housing Solution, singular. We only have one solution.com. And it's in flux, so I apologize if you're running into some issues, but you will see now that we have a portion of the site that's also dedicated to the housing side. So I encourage you, look at it, give us your opinion, tell us what you think, and engage.
And we're also going to put a link in there to the show that I referenced earlier that Ron was on, called Trade Talks, produced by NASDAQ. It was the August 2025 episode, and we'll put that link in there as well.
I'm going to just echo what Alan Mark has said. It's always a gift to be with you and to hear your story, and there's a lot of takeaways for me, so thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. And you know what we do at the end of the show? We do that thing. This is the complexity of toilet paper. Or it could be, this is the complexity of toilet paper. You see what I did there? I made it complex. You guys didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, all right. We're out.
Bye-bye.
The complexity of toilet paper. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Did you say toilet paper?
Everything complicated. One big medieval mess.
I'm overthinking. I'm overthinking.
This is the complexity of toilet paper.